This is a fun piece too. It is called Vals Venezolano, Venezuelan Waltz, by Antonio Lauro. This is also 20th century, so similar to the Heitor Villalobos piece that I played earlier. It's about 2 minutes. It's very flashy. Hope you like it.
I'm so thrilled that we have Marisa Sardo today. So, Marisa, tell us where you're from. I thought you were a New Yorker, but you're a Bostonian.
Yes, so I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm originally from Chicago, but I'm currently living in Boston to pursue a postgraduate degree at New England Conservatory with Elliott Fisk. And but my family's Italian too. So I, grew up bilingual. All of my family is over in Italy. My mom moved to the U.S. She's the only one who moved to the U.S. actually from that side of the family. So all of my family is still in Italy. I visit them every year.
That's awesome. So you were born in Chicago.
I was born in Chicago. Yes.
I don't know where I got New York from, but I guess maybe you seem like a New Yorker, but definitely a
Oh,
Northeast
I'll
person.
take I'll take that as a compliment. I love the East Coast.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think maybe when I was reading your bio and it said Italian American, I just assumed you were
Oh, yeah.
New Yorkers.
Yeah, no,
So,
but I am Italian American in that I am, a dual citizen. I am bilingual in Italian. I visit every year to visit my family. I am literally Italian American. I'm not, I have a direct line in Italy, and I love going to visit. I miss my family.
so where I grew up, tell us about your early days of music. When did you discover that music was your thing?
Yeah, so I started playing the guitar when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and classical guitar. I started on classical guitar, and my dad actually taught me. He plays acoustic guitar and a little bit of electric, and he played a little bit of classical. And so he taught me when I was, young, and when my parents realized that, I had this passion for it, even at a young age, that they continued me on private lessons with other teachers. So I've been playing my whole life basically, and I knew from a young age that it was going to be a big part of my life. I think I just knew music was my path.
So let's go back to those early days. You were 4 or 5 years old. You started formal study through a local teacher or your father or both.
Both, both. So I started with my dad, and then after like maybe a year, I don't remember exactly how long, but after a short time, my parents moved me on to music school and private teachers.
Wow, that's really awesome. What were some of the early exposures that your teachers showed to you? I mean, did you start off with a certain method?
Ooh, I did not actually learn via one specific method. I had a lot of different um, method books and method studies during my early days. I don't even remember exactly which ones that I had, kind of stuck with, because I learned all of them, kind of briefly. And my teachers, of course, went in their own direction too, and they were teaching me kind of a little more individual studies too, instead of just method books also. But a lot of technique, a lot of positioning, of course, and a lot of duets too. I remember a specific teacher who was teaching me a lot of duets we were playing together, and that was a lot of fun. I remember those lessons very clearly.
Love duets. I had similar exposure, and I have a student right now. I feel the duet is very important for establishing timing and tempo for them.
Yes.
So, did you do some like right hand studies, Segovia scales, some of
Yes.
the typical things?
Yes, yes, typical things, a lot of Segovia scales. I still do Segovia scales to this day. I think those are so important. I did a little bit of the Christopher Parkening method too. That's the one that I remember, because I do actually teach some of that to my students today as well. It stuck with me.
So, is there a certain part of the classical music literature that you've always been attracted to? For example, Renaissance versus Baroque versus Romantic period.
Well, since I am a metalhead, I do love classical and romantic era music. Yeah, I noticed your shirt. I love classical and romantic era music. So Soar. So guitar composers like Soar and Giuliani and Mertz, all the way to Tárrega, and of course Villa-Lobos, the heavy metal guy on the guitar, Brouwer, getting a little later too. And then also, I have a very deep fascination for orchestral composers like Tchaikovsky and Shostakovich, Beethoven, Mozart, all of these composers during these few eras. I really am drawn to that.
So I'm fascinated by your generation, and I hate to date myself, but I've done a bunch of these interviews now, and I feel people like yourself represent this most awesome chapter in the evolution of the next generation. I mean, you're fresh, you're young, you're beautiful, you're talented. And I was at the concert the other night with Stephanie Jones, and I was talking to the person next to me, and it was so evident that you have so much advantages that didn't exist 30 years ago. The entire digital age platform. When I was in school, if you needed a piece of music, you had to go to the musical library and find it. And if it didn't exist, you had to go into New York City to the big music houses and locate it. So tell me about what it's like growing up in the digital age and studying classical guitar.
Great question. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's amazing all of the opportunities that we have these days due to the digital age. In fact, if you think about it, 30 years ago, there were not nearly as many talented and proficient guitarists as there are today, classical guitar especially. And so I think that, the technology has really, really helped us and will continue to help us. I think that's, I wouldn't say that's what's keeping us alive, because a classical guitar is always going to be alive. I think it's an instrument that many people might not even realize how much they respect and need in their lives. But I think that technology has helped us to get onto different platforms as well, and to reach even further than just the classical guitar community in the world. I'm noticing a lot I'll speak from my own experience. I'm noticing that my own posts, for example, are kind of getting onto all different kinds of classical music and just music platforms in general, on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. And so I think that's very, very helpful, and I love it. I personally think that it's a good thing for our generation. And in fact, there's just so many wonderful guitarists today that are really getting known and getting seen thanks to all of this.
Yeah, I'm blown away at the amount of players as well as the amount of wonderful, skilled players. When I was in college, I mean, I was one of two, maybe three in the entire guitar department. And in grad school, a very small handful, and that was down in Miami. So yeah, name one singular piece of technology that you think is essential to you and your playing and your career.
Oh, that's so hard. That is so hard. Um, well, this is okay. This is an answer that, seems obvious, but my phone, I think that my phone is where I make my videos for Instagram. It's how I'm able to kind of keep updated easily and quickly with all of my social medias and with my contacts, via email, via cell phone, via social media. The phone, honestly, I think might be the my favorite and the best technological invention that we have as musicians. Now, the other answer for you, I will say, would be, of course, my my DAWs, the digital audio workstations that I work on, my high quality microphones and webcams that I make for my more professional videos. Those, of course, are essential, I think, for all musicians. But the phone has been great.
The phone's amazing. You have all the research as well as recording right in the palm of your hands, and then you can post it all. I think the most fascinating piece of technology, and maybe because of my generation, is an app called Music Speed Changer. So you can take a piece, slow it all the way down without degrading the tone or the
Uh-huh.
pitch, and it allows you to really hone in on how somebody played a phrase or a measure or even a discrepancy in what you might be hearing and reading at the same time.
Well, I
We didn't
don't know.
have that. We had to drop a needle on a record.
That's really cool. Wow. That particular app should sponsor us after this interview.
There you go. So let's go back to methodology, both as a student and teacher. What do you feel is either missing or just not getting enough love and attention out there?
Ooh, I have to think about that one. I think, well, I don't know if I have an answer for you, Eric, because I think that every teacher has something valuable to give to their students. I I don't know if I believe in a bad teacher. I think everybody has something that students learn
So
from.
let me rephrase. Let me rephrase.
Mhm.
So, is there a particular composer that you feel in your travels gets overlooked?
Ooh, oh, many, many. And there are so many female composers and women composers that are completely overlooked that nobody knows. Now, I'll name, of course, the more popular female composers, but even these are not very, well known. Emilia Giuliani, Madame Sidney Pratton, even modern day like Clarissa Saad, and then non-guitar also Missy Mazzoli. I absolutely love her, um, to name a few. I think that a lot of women composers, like women guitarists, are not as well known yet. I think it's starting to change now, but it's still slow. And so I'm hoping actually myself to be part of the change. During my future doctorate research, I want to be studying the feminine sound and women in guitar because I strongly believe that men and women play differently, just due to anatomical differences within our bodies and also mental and hormonal differences. I think make a big difference in how we interpret music and how we play. And so I think I think that that is an important topic since we're still not quite equal yet.
I'm fascinated because I love to watch women play because I feel there's a certain outward physical expression and emotion that becomes very kinesthetic and at one with the instrument. My observation is men, including myself, tend to be more serious and internalized, where women are more. And I mean, that was evident when I watched Stephanie the other night. Certainly, when I watch your videos, you have a lot of that. And there's this one woman online, I can't remember her name, but she's got like pink curly hair. She's from one of the Latin American countries.
I don't think
And
I
when
know
she
her.
plays, I'll send you a link. I can't think of
Yeah.
her name, but when she plays, I wish I could feel whatever it is she's experiencing.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. Yeah, yeah. I definitely think that in general, men and women do interpret music differently, and it comes out in different ways too. And I don't have data for you yet, but that is something that I'm really interested in pursuing for the betterment of music as a gendered idea in the music world.
So let's stay on that topic for just another question. Um, how did you view Ida Presti in her day?
Oh yeah, Ida Presti too. Oh, I love her. I love her. I think she's fantastic. She was a phenomenal player, phenomenal composer, and I think she really turned the tides for us women in the classical guitar world and the music world in general. And so I massively respect her and idolize her also.
One of the most incredible players for sure. I don't think enough people even know who she is today.
Yes.
That's great. So let's fast forward to what you're currently up to. You're teaching and you're studying.
I'm teaching, I'm studying, I'm also performing concerts every now and then. I have a few future concerts coming up that I will announce shortly on my social media channels. But yeah, so I'm currently living in Boston. However, next year I will actually be moving to a different continent. I will also announce that later. To continue pursuing my career in a different classical guitar scene.
Wow, that's very impressive. I can't wait to hear where that's going to be. So you're studying under Fisk currently?
Yes, yes.
Tell me about that.
He is one of the greatest. He's probably the greatest musician of all time. I absolutely idolize him. He's been one of my favorite musicians and guitarists for a very, very long time. So I feel so fortunate and honored to have the chance to study under him. He is one of the greatest minds of music. It's amazing.
Definitely a huge name in the CG world, but a name we don't hear very often in the modern world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the classical guitar is still a very kind of isolated world also. But I think that's changing a little bit too. I'm seeing more and more conservatories and universities start to implement guitar programs too. Now, the pandemic did hurt that a little bit, I think, but hopefully there will be a trend that trend happening again, so that we can integrate a little more into just the classical music scene as well.
And who did Elliot study with? Do you know?
He studied with Oscar Giglia, Segovia, and then there was one more, and I don't remember. One more name.
Yeah, he's actually very good friends with my old professor, Harris Becker from CW Post, Long Island University. There's like a good friendship between him and Elliot, as well as David Russell, who frequently does the Long Island Guitar Festival.
Mhm.
Any plans of any festivals?
Yeah, I have a few festivals that I'm planning to go both compete in and also perform in, or at least be part of the festival. I'm gonna go to the Appalachian Guitar Festival this year, Memphis Guitar Festival. I plan to do Philadelphia Guitar Society Competition and Festival. The GFA, I will make an appearance there this year as well. And then there's one more festival that I might be judging, but because I'm not sure yet if that is set in stone, I'm not going to announce it yet.
So tell me how you feel about the difference between competitive playing and recital playing.
Oh, it's so different. So different. And I really do not like competing that much, honestly. I like being able to prepare for competitions. I think that's, it's a good experience for young musicians like myself, but playing for concerts versus playing for a competition, it's a very, very different experience. When you're playing for concerts, you're not thinking about, okay, if I make a mistake, then I'm out, which is what it is in competitions, which I don't know if I entirely agree with that all the time, because I do think that, just like in concerts, music is about passion and individuality, not necessarily about cleanliness. So I think in the concerts, I do my best to prepare, of course, make everything as clean as possible and as polished as possible. But I just have a better time there because it's me. I'm sharing myself with my audience. Whereas in a competition, I'm not thinking of that so much. I'm more thinking, I need to play this piece in the way that I need to do to present to the judges. So
What was your deciding factor in I'm going to compete as well as perform?
I think that though competitions is not the only way to help a guitarist's career, I think it is important to do competitions because it helps you to solidify the repertoire that you do have. It prepares you to learn how to be a performer in concerts as well. And of course, some of the prizes in competitions are also very, very nice. So I think it's good to just do competitions not knowing what to expect. I don't think that anybody should go into a competition expecting to win because you never know. It's all based on the judges, and that could change every day, right? The judges' opinions change every day, even. So it's,
Oh,
you know,
for sure. I was glued to the Baltimore competition a few months back, and I mean, my opinion versus the judges versus who didn't even make it to the finals is all very subjective as well as night and day for sure.
so I don't think that a player should expect to advance or expect not to advance. You never know what's going to happen. There have been competitions that I've won that I did not think I played well, and there have been competitions that I played the absolute best I've ever played in my life, and I had not even advanced to the next round. So you never know. But I think competitions are a good experience for young players. So I do think that players my age and younger should get into the competition world because that, again, that also helps you prepare for the concerts. At a certain point, I want to stop doing the competitions and just focus on the concerts. But I am having a good time going to the festivals right now and meeting with my colleagues and competing at the moment.
Are there any specific composers you're focusing on for performance these days?
Well, I do love a lot of the 19th century repertoire, so I have always program a lot of Soar in my music, in my programs, and Merz, of course, the Tarantella is my soulmate piece, so I always program that one. I have to. But I actually have been starting to look at a lot of new repertoire to add to some of my concert programs as well. A lot of Brouwer that I'll be adding, which is exciting because I absolutely adore Leo Brouwer. He's my favorite composer of the 20th century and modern day. Yeah.
So let's talk about technology again. There's a lot of controversy over the use of an iPad on stage. Something you are for, against, impartial?
Oh, I'm for the iPad. Absolutely. I play with an iPad too all the time. Oh my goodness. I think that it saves trees. It's easy to carry. You can have so many of your, scores on there without having to carry so many physical scores. Absolutely the iPad. I think that it's a great invention and it's necessary for us musicians. Absolutely.
Do you use a tablet or an iPad in actual performance or off performance?
So most of the performances that I have, I do memorize my music, so I don't use the iPad. However, my kind of rule of thumb with memorizing and with playing from the score or not is if it is a new music, if it's a new work, you can use the score, and if it's Bach, you can use the score. But I think that, because music in those middle eras are a little bit easier to memorize, I think, just based on the structures of the pieces, I think that, those pieces should be memorized. But yes, oh, and then I'm sorry, one more thing too, chamber music, of course. I think definitely I would use the iPad for that. I would not memorize.
I raise these questions because they're always highly controversial topics that are out there, whether it's a tablet or a paper score. I love the fact that a score for me is a visual mapping. So even if the piece is like in your head, there's a difference between 100% committed to memory and I need a placeholder or a mind map of where you might be. And I saw that iPad on stage the other night and I was like, oh, cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, even when I'll say again, I'll speak for myself, but even when I personally memorize things, when I am playing from memory, I'm visualizing the score in my head. So, there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with using a score on stage. Absolutely not. I think, if you're going to play like the Mozart Variations by Soar on stage, just as an example, that one can be memorized. It's a tricky piece, but it's not challenging to memorize, I think, because there are some pretty pretty easy landmarks there. But Bach, oh my goodness, Bach is so hard to memorize. Just use the score. Yeah.
So another piece of technology that I see, whether I agree with it or not, a lot of people are now plugging in
Ah,
an
like
acoustic. Yeah,
amplification. Okay.
yeah, like when I saw Segovia play, they barely had microphones, and Carnegie Hall have projected. Now you have all kinds of microphone technology, but you're also seeing classical guitars with inputs and pickups built in. How do you feel about that?
Well, I do think that I don't have any problems with being amplified in microphones. In fact, I think that, it gives us actually a lot more to play in different kinds of halls too, because, a lot of these kind of bigger halls cannot really accommodate the guitar, which is just in general such a soft instrument. Now, as for guitars that you plug in, I don't know. I've actually never seen those yet, so I'm not sure how to feel about that. But the idea of amplification in general, I think, is important. I actually just had a solo concert on January 5th where I was amplified, and it was in a theater that was, it wasn't huge. It could have been done without amplification, but I just decided I'm gonna amplify it so that, everyone sitting in the back can hear me perfectly. And it was great. The amplification system was fantastic, and it really helped me to, project. So
Yeah, I never have a problem with miking. I'm really old fashioned though. When I see somebody actually plugging in an input jack to a classical guitar, I'm like, oh, but
that
that's
one's,
just me.
I would
I'm
have to
old
see
school.
that. Yeah, that one's strange, definitely unusual.
It is. It is strange. So let's talk about another controversial topic in the study of guitar: tablature versus notation.
Ah, yes, yes. So I think that tablature is a good resource, but it's a resource. It's a cheat sheet. It's not the actual way to read music because there's a lot of things that tablature misses out on when you're playing. You don't read rhythm in tablature. You don't read the notes in tablature. It's just location and position. It's not what you're actually playing. So you're missing the harmony and you're missing, any kind of counterpoint, if you're playing Bach, you're missing and rhythm, you're missing a lot. So I think that tablature, it's a good resource again to use, especially for players who are not as confident reading standard notation. But I don't think that it should be the primary way that we learn how to read music, because again, you're missing a lot.
100%. And I ask that question in every interview that I do. And that's mainly the answer across the board, is that if you're serious about classical guitar, notation, music theory, and all the, old school
Yes.
things go all the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
I
important.
find the written score to be absolutely a beautiful thing to look at.
It's the universal language, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about one of my favorite composers that I don't feel gets enough love at all in both performance and methodology, and that would be Aguado.
Oh, I love Aguado. Yes, fantastic. Aguado is phenomenal. I still play some of his like little like slur studies every now and then. He's a fantastic composer. Now, I the only besides his little studies, the only piece that I've actually played from him is of course the famous Rondo. I've never performed it in concert though, so I'm not as familiar with his larger works. So I can't speak on that. But I do, again, I love that era, right? So I do respect him tremendously, and I love his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Aguado and Saw lived together, and I can only imagine what that must have been like. Those two guys composing, hey Fernando and hey Dionisio, what do you got today? And these two
Yeah.
guys living together and partying the classical guitar life. I just scored front row seats to Manuel Barrueco, who's coming to Florida in April. And when I asked him what's on his program, and he said Aguado, I nearly fell off my chair. I was really excited
Amazing.
about that.
Amazing. He plays that stuff so well too. You're going to really have a good time. But I also love Aguado specifically. I mean, you see all of the devices that I use when I play every now and then. I'm a big, big tripod fan. Love Aguado for the tripod that he invented, and he set the stone for, the correct sitting position for all guitarists. And so I really love him. Yeah.
Do you like to compose or arrange anything?
Yeah, I compose a little bit. Not as much now as I did in the past. I was a minor in composition in my undergrad studies. Um, because of my schedule now between teaching and performing and traveling and studying as well, I just don't have, unfortunately, time to compose at the moment. But I do want to get back to it. Absolutely, it's a lot of fun, and I think, again, more women composers. It's always a good thing.
Yeah, I'm always torn between composing and playing because they're two very different parts of the brain. And if you get sucked into one, the other gets neglected and vice versa.
Well, I mean, composition, it's the same process as playing an instrument, in that when you're practicing composition, you have to put hours into making this composition, practicing it, perfecting it, going over again, working on certain sections. I mean, it's even more challenging, I think, than actually playing an instrument, because you might even need to play yourself an instrument that you don't know how to play as a composer. So it's really, really challenging. But I do work with a lot of composers, though. I have a few commissions coming up, and I have commissioned a few works in the past. And I absolutely love working with modern composers. I think that the future of classical guitar and the future of new music is in the right hands.
So what does a day in Marissa's life look like from sun up to bedtime?
So as a postgraduate student, I'm not taking as many classes. My study is primarily on my lessons and my repertoire classes, and so I do a lot of practicing during the day. I do a lot of teaching. So I wake up, I get my breakfast. I usually go to school to practice, and then I come back for lunch. I go teach. In between teaching, I practice again. And I have a combination of in-person and online students. So there's usually a few of those, every day. Mostly online. I teach mostly students through Zoom, which I find works very well. And then the evening I have dinner and I take some time to rest. I do some nail care. I, take some time for myself after a busy day. I think it's important to have breaks.
Friendships, relationships, time for that or no?
Yeah. I think usually evenings after my day, and weekends too. I do also teach on the weekends, so I'm busy 7 days a week. I'm working 7 days a week. So, but I do have time, here and there that I make for myself and for friends, of course.
And so here's a question I ask everybody. Here's two questions. Favorite types of food and favorite film.
Okay, I was thinking about that because you sent me those. I was thinking about it. So, food, pasta, because I'm Italian. So, pasta, you can have anything on it and it's delicious. Love pasta, can't go wrong. My go-to meal is just pasta. That's my comfort food for me. Now, favorite film is a very, very tricky one. I was thinking because I have so many favorites. Of course, classics like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I love that stuff. But I'm a really, really big Marvel fan. And I absolutely loved all of the Marvel movies, specifically the ones pre-Endgame. Love. I think my favorite is the first Doctor Strange. I think that's my favorite movie. I saw it again recently, actually, just, rewatched the Doctor Strange movies, and I love the Doctor Strange.
That's so you say classic film, and my brain went to 1930s, but that's okay.
Classic from my time.
Did you say Lord of the Rings?
Yes. Oh, I love Lord of the Rings. Yes.
Did you see the new series, Power of the Rings?
Not yet, not yet. I know I need to. I have to. There's so many like series and movies that I have to catch up on. I know the Oscar nominations are coming out. I usually like to stay on top of those too. So I have some catching up to do.
All right. So, what's your 5-year goal?
Okay. So in 5 years, I will be very likely doing my doctorate studies. I'm hoping to continue to perform concerts on an even more regular basis than now. I would like to also, I don't know if this is going to happen in 5 years, but I'm hoping to teach at a university as well, or at a conservatory. and I will have begun or finished my research on women in the guitar as well.
Will that be published as a book or an essay or a thesis?
It'll probably be my dissertation. Yeah, I mean, I might do more if I find that this topic has a lot to offer, then I might do more than one publication as well. But the dissertation, that's what my dissertation will be on, absolutely.
Well, I look forward to reading that. So what's the next step?
The next step is to graduate from this postgraduate degree, to move to a different continent and continue my career there. Um, and then I really am going to be living in this new place for maybe a year, maybe more, at least a year. But I would like to come back to the United States to do my doctorate. I think that some of the doctorate programs here in the US are some of the best in the world. And it would be good, of course, to be close to family for that long period of time as well. But those are my next steps. Yeah.
How many guitars do you have?
I have 3 guitars. I have a guitar that's back in Chicago that is by Marshall Brunet. He's Richard Brunet's son. He made me that guitar back in 2017. I love that guitar. It's fantastic. And I have 2 guitars here in Boston. I have one by James Bauer. He is a local builder in Chicago also. He made me that guitar as well. It is my 610 scale, spruce and cocobolo rosewood. I personally think that modern guitars are too big. No one can play them unless you have a bare hand like Segovia. So I'm all for the smaller sized instrument. My Marshall Brunet is also 640. That's also spruce and Madagascar rosewood. And then I also have my guitar that I won in a competition 2 years ago by Wilson Burnham. He's a Colorado and New Mexico based builder. And he made this gorgeous redwood guitar and East Indian rosewood back and sides. It's just a stunning instrument. All 3 of them, I love them. I play them all kind of interchangeably.
I'm a big fan of this 640. My 650 is a beast. It's been with me for 40 years and it's still a beast. It's a hard instrument to play, and most people say so when they play it, but I can't give up the sound of that instrument, so I'm very particular what I play on it. I recently gave up a 610 because it was too small, and that was an acquisition from the 1800s. I really wanted a period instrument, and then I was like, it was just so tiny. So I actually have a 640 being built right now, another one, but cedar.
I think the
Favorite strings?
one more thing. I think the
Sure.
640s should be the like standard size, not 650, because many people who are kind of smaller built like myself, 650s, that I mean, I have tendonitis in both my hands from playing on a 650 for a majority of my life until college. It's just not doable.
Take care of the hand, because last year I had hand surgery.
Oh,
My finger was locking from years of playing that 650,
yeah.
and it was rough. It was rough. You know, my biggest fear is what's the outlook going to be. So yeah, I love my 640. Let's talk about strings. Any favorite brand?
Well, I love Savarez, I love No Block, and I love RC strings. Those are my 3 favorites. I can't choose a favorite out of those because I use them all again interchangeably too. But I've been playing on Savarez strings probably for the longest. They're definitely the go-to for me. I think No Block strings are really, really fancy. They sound just fantastic on almost every instrument. And the RC strings are some strings that I got into kind of recently too, like a year ago. And I really, really like them too. I think they have such a beautiful, gentle sound that I really like on the instrument. Now I'm a carbon girl though. Love carbon strings. I don't play on nylon anymore. I don't think nylon for my playing, it doesn't project nearly as much as carbon does. So.
I definitely enjoy playing all different kinds of strings, and I like to bounce different strings off of each guitar, but I always end up going back to Savarez as well.
Mhm. On all of my guitars, I have different kind of sets of strings that I use too, because not all strings work on all guitars. In fact, I actually tried a Savarez set, the same exact set that I use on my Bauer guitar. I tried on my Burnham guitar, and it just didn't have the same quality on the Burnham guitar. So now I use a combination of the Savarez basses plus no black trebles on my Burnham, and that's the perfect combination.
Awesome. So I have a request, and you can fulfill it whenever you want. There's no time limit on it. But at some point, I would love to hear you play the Fernando Sor theme and variations on Marlboro.
Oh, love that piece so much. I've never actually played it, but oh, I love it. Yeah, that would be great. That would be a really great piece.
I think it's one of his most exquisite pieces that's in the column of not enough love and attention out there.
Oh, there's so many of his pieces that don't get enough love and attention though either. You know, everyone knows the grand solo and everyone knows the Mozart variations. They're fantastic pieces, nothing against them, but have you heard the Marlboro? Have you heard Opus 30? I mean, that's metal. That's metal. Maybe not the Marlboro, but the Opus 30 is metal.
Marlboro is my favorite, and I was not able to complete the last variation because that was right smack in the middle of the tendonitis and finger locking. So I have dusted off the score once again, and I'll put that on my very long-term list.
I would love to hear you play it then. Yeah, you should post some videos on it when you're learning it again.
Yeah, I mean, the version I did is on my YouTube channel, minus that last variation.
Mhm. Awesome. It's such a great piece. Yeah.
So let's talk about metal. You're a metal girl?
Yeah, I'm a metal girl.
Who do you like?
I like all kinds of metal. As long as it has metal in it, I love it. So I grew up with classics like Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Scorpions, Megadeth. I love, absolutely. I saw Judas Priest recently, actually. I just adore them. I saw them for my 23rd birthday a few years ago. So good. But some of the modern bands that I'm listening to now are Sabaton. They're a power metal, kind of historical metal band. They do a lot of their songs are based on specific moments in history, usually related to wars in history. Arch Enemy, which is a death metal band fronted by a woman growler. She's so good. I also love symphonic metal like Nightwish, Epica, Camelot, Amaranth, Beast in Black. They're not, Beast in Black is kind of more techno metal at this point. It's not so much a symphonic metal, but absolutely love that genre as well. I've been recently getting into Cobra and the Lotus, which is
just about to mention her. She's amazing. I saw her.
You saw the I
saw her. She opened for Kiss.
No way. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. About 8 years ago here in Florida, I took my daughter, who was 10 at the time, and she was like in love with Cobra and the Lotus at the time, and she's an amazing singer.
So good. I love them. They were like kind of thrash at the beginning. Now they're more kind of like goth metal, but I just I love them. I also just got tickets to see Powerwolf. They're coming to Boston in February, and I'm so excited. Another power metal band.
That's so cool. We have a lot of interests in common in the metal world. You're naming all the bands that I listen to. Tariq Harb is a big metal fan.
Oh yeah, that makes sense actually.
He started out as a metal player back when he was a kid.
Johann Smith has a death metal band, I think. Yeah, in fact, he said that he just recorded some like classical guitar on his band's next album, which is super cool. So there's a lot of like overlap of classical guitarists and metal, and I love that.
Well, yeah, it bridges the best of the two worlds, and we can only imagine if Randy Rhoads had lived, where his playing and writing would have gone.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, it was so awesome speaking with you today.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for this awesome interview. You are so classic and so metal, all wrapped into one. And it's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing a wonderful career for Marisa Sardo. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's such a joy to do this today. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Eric.
you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.